Welcome into Just a Minute with Joey Blackwell. I'm Katie Windham, and Joey. Both Alabama baseball and Alabama softball have lost their first two series this season. Both are sitting at 2-4 in SEC play, and have some important weekends coming up with implications on where their seeding and standing will be in the postseason for baseball if they want to, make a regional, and for where they'll be in the SEC standings, and for softball if they want to still maybe host a regional. So Joey, starting with you in baseball, just how important are these next few weekends for them to get some more SEC wins?
Well, starting out 2-4 is never what you want to be in baseball in conference play, and that's exactly what Alabama's done. They kept one of the games close against Florida, and then they won another one. They did ultimately lose the series, though. They could have the heartbreaking loss to start Kentucky in 12 innings, to start the Kentucky series, excuse me. But then they ended up winning one, so once again, they avoided being swept, which was important. But that adds an extra level of emphasis over these next couple of weekends. They play at Arkansas this week, which obviously Arkansas is one of the best teams in the SEC year in and year out. They're number 6 right now. I think for Alabama, it's going to be very important for them to at least win one game up there. When it comes to selection committee time, it's understandable if you drop a series on the road to a team like Arkansas. But I think if Bama can win one game on the road and at least keep another game within 2 or 3 runs, that's ultimately going to look good on the resume. The next weekend, though, is even more important, though, and that's when they host Mississippi State. The Bulldogs so far this year have had a horrible start to conference play. They're 0-6 to start SEC play. So a team like Mississippi State is hardly the team that you want to come into Sewell Thomas Stadium and potentially turn their season around on your field. That really doesn't look good. I know that Mississippi State does have a series this weekend. I believe it's at South Carolina. Let me make sure that's correct. No, actually, they're hosting South Carolina. But South Carolina's a really good team this year, so they will be able. But they still could potentially get an SEC win there. So maybe they don't have a 0 in the win column by the time they reach Tuscaloosa. But regardless, that series is going to be very crucial, because when it comes to the end of the year, if Alabama drops that series, that's going to be a really black mark on their record when it comes to the regional selections later this year.
Yeah, and like you said, a 2-4 start is never ideal. It's not something Alabama fans are super used to. They're currently sitting at 11th in the SEC standings, which Alabama has played one less series than most teams, because SEC opening weekend was when they were in Texas. But the good news is, well, I guess you can look at it as good news and bad news. The good news is their next 2 series at Missouri this upcoming weekend, and the next weekend hosting South Carolina, are 2 of the teams below them in the standings. And then they close the season at Ole Miss, which is the other team below them in the standings. So 3 of their last 6 series are against the 3 worst teams in the SEC, which means they should get a lot of wins in those series. But it also means you really can't afford to drop more than one game, if not none, in those series, because you already have 10 losses on the season. And so the rest of their schedule is pretty favorable. Like I already mentioned, the 3 series against the 3 worst teams, and then they host series against Auburn and LSU. First time the Auburn's come to Tuscaloosa since, I believe, 2019. It's been a really long time, just the way the schedule's kind of worked out with COVID and stuff. And that series has been sold out for months by the time the games will have come. And so that's going to be a really big weekend. They host LSU. And then their one other series is at Mississippi State. So a lot of winnable games on the schedule, but it means they need to win. And we were kind of talking about before recording that losing their series at Tennessee this past weekend is completely respectable. There's nothing wrong with that. Tennessee is at the top of the SEC standings, one of the best teams in the country, arguably the best pitching staff in the country. But I think you look back with a lot of question marks to that series of, they could have won the series, especially with that finale on Sunday. They did win that middle game. So like baseball, they've not gotten swept either weekend, but these next couple weekends are going to be super important for them wrapping up wins. And we saw last season, they did not finish the season super strong. And this season, it's going to be something that they need to do. But I think we saw a lot of encouraging things from Alabama softball this past weekend, even though they lost to Tennessee. They put up 5 runs in the series finale against that really good pitching staff. They put up 4 runs and won the game in the second game. In the midweek game last week, they scored a ton of runs against UAB. And so the offense is, I think, kind of starting to find its rhythm. Maybe they found a number 2 pitcher in Alex Salter. And so they have the pieces in place to win a lot of games then, but that's what it's going to come down to, is actually winning those games. But that will wrap up today's Just a Minute. Thank you so much for watching.